This is Energy Frontiers for the week. Hello everyone, I am Justina Okechukwu, and we say thank you to the African Energy Chamber for their support of this show. Now let's get started with some energy news headlines from here in Africa and around the world. Major deals made with warm handshakes were sealed at the second edition of the Russia-Africa Summit held in St. Petersburg this week, and we tracked a few on Energy Frontiers. The host, Russia, expressed its interest in a long-term fuel and energy cooperation with African countries, which does not involve deep discounts on supplies of oil and petroleum products. Moscow have also vowed to extend its presence in gas production projects in Algeria, while Russian gas company Novatek says it is looking to expand sales for liquefied natural gas supply to Africa. Meanwhile, the Burundian government have signed a deal of cooperation with Russia in the use of atomic energy for peaceful purpose and to improve the country's nuclear infrastructure. Away from the Russia-Africa Summit, Libya's National Well Drilling Company, a subsidiary of the NOC, has signed a turnkey contract with Schlumberger of the United States, looking to drill 3 oil wells for the Remsa company in Libya. The deal was signed to increase oil production and enhance collaboration between national and international companies. Still in North Africa, the Egyptian government says total investment in its giant Zohr offshore gas field has reached $12 billion and is expected to hit $15 billion mark by 2026. The South African government has launched an energy one-stop shop to reduce the administrative burden and long waiting periods companies face when they apply for approval for the new electricity generation projects. A United Nations agency, the Sustainable Energy for All, says about 1.12 billion people among the rural and urban poor are considered to be at high risk due to a lack of access to cooling, a decline of about 20.4 million people compared to 2022. In its 2023 Chilling Prospects analysis, the UN agency finds that by proportion of the population, risk is most significant in 3 African countries among a critical 9, with Mozambique having 83% of its total population at high risk, followed by Nigeria at 53% and Sudan at 44%. And that was a snapshot of your energy news headlines. Coming up, low-cost solutions can give billions of people access to modern cooking by the year 2030. More on that after this break. This is Energy Frontiers. A new analysis by the International Energy Agency and the African Development Bank Group revealed that a universal clean cooking access could be achieved worldwide, but that would require an investment of up to $8 billion every year between now and 2030. The new report focused on the vision for clean cooking access for all, also states that public and private finance have a key role to play in advancing clean cooking, especially in regions like Sub-Saharan Africa, which do not have the fiscal space to drive the required investment through public funds. Here is IEA's Executive Director, Fatih Birol, and other African energy stakeholders speaking to this at a webinar during the week.
We see that some countries already made good efforts in China, India, Indonesia, and as such, the biggest part of the problem is today Sub-Saharan Africa. Hence, this report is focusing on mainly on Sub-Saharan Africa. So, what are the issues related with using wood, agricultural waste, animal waste for cooking? What are the implications? Number one, the health implication. It is a major reason for premature death in many countries, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa, and women and children are the direct target of this air pollution and respiratory diseases. So this is a major issue, and it is a disturbing issue for us that we just sit back and watch the situation as the world, as this issue emerges as a major threat for health for millions of people, especially for women and children. The second issue is we talk more and more in different parts of the world on the gender issue, which we should even talk more. But when I look at the numbers, I see that it is mainly women who do suffer under this, not only in terms of health, but they are losing a lot of their time to collect wood and also for cooking. Our analysis show that on average a woman spent about 5 hours a day just to collect the fuel for cooking and then to cook it. And this is definitely bad for the woman not to have enough time for education, for social life and others. So women are disadvantaged, and in my view, my personal view, if you talk about the gender issues in the world, this should be as a top priority. Now, coming back to the question, yes, it is true that the many established oil producers and oil companies say that today, as there are, for example, 800 million people who not have access to electricity, this should be our priority, not the other issues such as the climate change. Now, first of all, I appreciate very much that the recent growing attention of the oil and gas community and the energy access issue. This is very good news. And having said that, I have two points to register here. One, in terms of large-scale fossil fuel investments, for example, in terms of oil investments, there is no one-to-one direct relationship between the more oil and the more access to electricity. All the numbers show that the contribution of oil to growing electricity generation globally, building new oil-fired power plants for the electricity access, is close to zero. So I wanted to register this. And the second, as I mentioned during my intervention, again, I register with great happiness that the oil companies, gas companies globally, international and national oil and gas companies are turning their attention to energy access. And I think there is an excellent opportunity now that the last year, 2022, was in the history one of the highest revenues that the global oil and gas industry registered, about $4 trillion US. And this issue that we just raised, finding a solution to the clean cooking, would require only 0.2% of this 4 trillion. I think there is a great opportunity for the oil and gas community to follow their statements they make at different occasions, that they see energy access as a key priority by allocating 0.2% of their revenues to this very important cause. And I am really sure that they will be on the right side of the history.
We are calling on global action to support accelerated access to clean cooking solutions and technologies, and hope that the proposed pathways will galvanize such actions amidst increasing socio-economic development in Africa and the growing private sector interest in clean cooking. In this regard, we heard Dr. Birol say that 8 billion in annual investments is required globally. This amount is $4 billion in Africa for universal access to be attained by 2030. And this is a significant amount, but not insurmountable considering the potential benefits. But just to contextualize, Dr. Birol talked about the oil companies. Here, if the amount required is only a small proportion, actually less than a tenth, of the 2030 annual net profit reported by any of the 10 largest companies in the world.
Our conviction is that, and we are aligned with the report on that. There is no real technical barrier on that, no financial barrier at all. It is a matter of political will and commitment to do in order to achieve those results. And on top of that, there are some cultural barriers on which with the specialists we work on with the population in order to get them committed and to this new technology, this new way of using or preparing the meal, basically. So all the solutions are here. With this kind of initiative, as this report, we can really put more focus on this issue. And just to say that, to finish, that in the frame of the energy transition, we used to put as a priority, as we say, we as Senegal and Africa, we used to put as priority that yes, it is important to go and do some progress in the CO2 emission, but let's not forget those priority and the clean cooking energy improvement is one of the priority, but most of them it is the development of this area.
Kenya is on course to be able to achieve our access to clean cooking by 2028. And we are using all the clean technologies, the fuels and applications, including bioethanol, e-cooking, biogas, improved cooktops, and also LPG, which we are soon rolling out to especially all the public institutions, starting with the schools. The president has given that objective and that direction that we indeed get the dirty fuels, what the WHO was talking about, out of our children in school, so they can be able to study in a clean environment. So we want to give them this transitional fuel as we also look forward to going fully clean. We work with all the stakeholders, including the governments, the development partners, and society and business community to be able to enhance our actions and provision to enable accelerated deployment. We are already formulating our clean cooking strategy, which we hope to be ready by October. And this is going to lead in the way of how to deploy, how to interact with all the members in the value chain, and how to facilitate accelerated uptake of clean cooking. We look forward to getting into some agreements during the Africa Climate Summit and during the COP28 on the world, looking at how we can be able to get flexible financing to be availed for the whole value chain, so that this tremendous opportunity we have to be able to bring on board the benefits, which are very immense, talking about social, economic, health, education of our rural girls, self-esteem of those girls in the rural areas. If we deploy clean energy technology, then we are going to be able to get these immense benefits. And we look forward to doing that in the side of the clean cooking.
Moving on, we have an energy analyst perspective into Goldman Sachs' latest bullish stance on oil prices for the year 2023. And there is more.
Imagine a future where tomorrow's solutions build a world of opportunities for all, and where human potential is truly realized. where every child has an equal chance in life, no matter where they were born. Imagine the potential of a continent built on low-carbon oil and natural gas and abundant renewable energy. Imagine Mozambique, Angola, Nigeria, Uganda, Senegal, Egypt, Namibia, and Algeria being let free to develop their natural resources without pressure from wealthy countries to leave it in the ground. Imagine an Africa where we cut red tape bureaucracy and provide better fiscal terms so we can compete globally for energy investments. African Energy Week is the African Energy Chamber's annual event held at the Cape Town waterfront, uniting African energy leaders, global investors, and executives from across the public and private sector for 4 days of intense dialogue on the future of the African energy industry, showcasing the latest technologies and innovations to 5,000 plus registered delegates from over 100 countries and international professionals from across the global energy sector. Be part of the future of the energy industry and join the energy movement by becoming an official sponsor, exhibitor, delegate, or partner. African Energy Week.
Welcome back to the program. Now, U.S. banking giant Goldman Sachs says it expects the London Brent crude to rise from just above $80 per barrel to $86 per barrel by the end of the year. The Global Investment Bank also stated that the lack of an agreement after the G20 energy ministers meeting indicated a very substantial uncertainty about long-run oil demand. In early trade Friday, oil prices fell as demand concerns continued to weigh against strong earnings reports and better than expected U.S. economic data. Brent crude fell to $83.65 a barrel, but was on track for a weekly 5% increase, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude fell to $79.58 a barrel, on track for a 5.2% weekly increase. I sat to an interview chat with energy economist Ayoride Akinloye to drill down on these reports, including the forecast by Goldman Sachs.
Now, Ayoride, Goldman Sachs remains bullish on its oil outlook on Brent crude prices at $86 by year end. What do you make of this forecast by the global banker?
Well, definitely. I think it's very much in line with expectations that we see and when we monitor the crude oil markets outlook. I think basically you look at some of the key factors. So primarily you look at, for example, in the U.S. economy, the U.S. being one of the largest buyers of crude oil in the world. You look at the fact that the economy still continues to grow. So if you look at the past, say, roughly 4 to 5 months, where the crude oil market has been sort of in a bearish slump, it's largely been due to concerns that we're going to see a recession in the US, with the Fed's interest rate hike and then also slowing growth in China. But if you look at GDP data from the US for the first 2 quarters of the year, they were very, very strong, despite, the interest rate hikes. And then also fiscal stimulus in China continues to be, the key driver in that space also. So when you see positive news coming out of China, coming out of US, there's big room for optimism regarding oil demand. When you now factor in the fact that manufacturing and industrial activity in key European industrial economies are still very strong through the year, then that fuels further optimism regarding crude oil demand. Now, when you go to the supply side, because it's a demand supply dynamic. When you go to the supply side, the OPEC Plus group has expressed determination that they're going to stabilize the crude oil markets. And we can see, for example, the voluntary 1 million barrels per day oil cuts by the Saudi Arabian nation, it has filtered into the market significantly this month. And that is also contributing to the fact that a lot of analysts and investors are expecting the supply side to tighten, whereas we are seeing demand expected to grow. For example, I think the IEA is estimating demand to grow by about 2.3 million barrels per day for the rest of 2023. So when you put these two factors side by side, tightening supply, increasing demand, definitely it would give room for oil prices to rise, and we could see it get even possibly close to $90 per barrel before the end of the year.
That looks like already an outlook, but oil prices pulled back from their 3-month highs on Wednesday, despite that forecast, and seems to be hovering around $82 and $83. What's driving the current prices?
Well, I think the pullback we saw on Wednesday, was mainly down to the fact that the US Fed actually announced a 25 basis point hike, and then the ECB followed suit in the early hours of this morning. So the market sort of reacted negatively to that. But if we look at what's going on in the markets now, we've seen a recovery, largely on the fact that the US GDP data came out earlier today. This afternoon, about roughly 3 or 4 hours ago, and it showed that the US economy grew by over 2% in Q2 due to strong consumer demand. So, and that has sort of renewed optimism that despite the Fed rate hikes, the US economy remains strong, and that will continue to drive demand. Then also, I mentioned earlier the Saudi Arabia voluntary oil cuts. There is suspicion that the Arab nation is going to extend the oil cuts into subsequent months, because they want to see oil prices return closer to the $90 per barrel mark, and that is sort of like the psychological benchmark for the group at this point in time. And that's why we are seeing, oil prices sort of look like it's recovering over the past few weeks now.
And what's your outlook on the oil markets in the short term, with prices in African countries skyrocketing?
Yes, I think basically on the crude oil side, like I mentioned, we expect to continue to see prices rise. Like I've mentioned, the demand side will continue to grow, and the supply side will continue to tighten. So, and when you combine those two things, you see demand likely to surge. You expect prices likely to surge towards the end of Q3 down into Q4. And then that means consequently for imported energy products for African countries like Nigeria, and other neighboring African countries, you can expect that cost of energy is definitely going to go up, particularly when, a lot of African countries are now operating a market-reflective energy market. So, again, that also has other ripple effects that we probably don't want to get into in terms of inflation and other things. But generally, we think the crude oil market is going to be strong for the rest of the year, higher prices, consequently higher energy product costs, and, all the other issues that will come with that down through the rest of the year.
And finally, the African Energy Chamber has announced the upcoming release of its highly anticipated second quarter 2023 outlook on the state of African energy. The report will provide in-depth analysis of key trends in the global and African oil and gas industry, with a particular focus on Africa's upstream outlook, OPEC cuts and compliance, current M&A activities, and the dynamic state of African renewable energy. In the meantime, application deadline is August 31 for the African Energy Chamber Education Scholarship Fund, and citizens of any African countries who are 35 years old or younger can apply. Young women who are working towards being a part of the oil and gas or energy-related fields have been encouraged to also take part in this opportunity. Please visit the AEC website on www.energychamber.org for more information. And this is where we draw the curtains on the show for this week. Thank you for always watching. And remember to follow the program on Frontier Africa Reports website, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us across all our social media handles as indicated on the screen. It's goodbye from me, Justina Okechukwu. I'll see you soon.